Hey everybody, it's your boy Nerdicane. I wanted to talk about video games today. I haven't done a video game video in a long time, and I was actually looking into some indie games, starting to get back into playing now that I have a little more time. But I want to do a series. This one's called The Best Games of My Life. And I'm kind of going to go back and talk about what else? The best games of my life. Sorry for that. I just put the phone down on the seat. And I'm going to take it all the way back to the very beginning, the first video game that I remember playing. Combat for the Atari 2600. Oh, the ass whoopings I would take over Combat. My sister would just beat the ever-loving hell out of me with this game. But it was frustrating. But, you know, it was just these glorious moments where my sister, the sister who played video games, she was 8 years older than me. My parents had this weird thing. They had two kids, and then they stopped having kids for a while, and then, being the complete maniacs they were like, hey, let's have two more. So it's almost like my parents had two sets of kids. My oldest sister's 10 years older than me. The next one is 8, and then my youngest sister, who's actually older than me, you get what I'm saying, she's 2 years older than me. So the same gap between babies 1 and 2 was repeated on babies 3 and 4. Now, I'm very thankful that my parents had 4 kids because I was the 4th. But middle sister, Vi, would kick my ass at this game so badly. But what drew me in is, it's a video game. You're playing in your home, and it was very new. It was very different at the time. It was a new industry, and this was like the heyday of the Atari 2600. This was before the crash, after E.T. I'll get into that later, because that may do that one on this series as well. But oh my goodness! But there was glorious moments in the game when I was playing, when you finally shot your sister and you see her stupid little tank spinning. This is what it felt like when you got hit. This is what it felt like to make a hit. This is what it looked like. This is what the game looked like. This was like, I don't even know how many bits this was. These games, in comparison of today, were microscopic. The amount of data, the amount of lines of code that made this game was very, very tiny. There was the video that I watched about 8-bit games, or NES games, how they would kind of play around with the palette and play around with the sprites to be able to make it seem like there was more data in the game than there actually was. It's very amazing, some of the games that they made with this limited amount. We're very, very spoiled. Now, watching that, I realize how spoiled we are today with, just how big our games can be and how fast our computers are. But Combat was way back in the day. This was one of the beginning, and it was tanks. Now, I went back and I watched some footage, and it was very, very... There was a game mode that I hated playing as a kid. It's a very simple game mode. It's a blank screen. Well, it's a clear battlefield with 2 tanks opposing each other. But as soon as the game started, the 2 tanks would disappear. You couldn't see your tank and you couldn't see your opponent's tank during this battle because they were invisible. The only time that they were visible is when you fired. So you had to keep track of your tank because your tank was invisible. You knew where you were going, so you had to kind of guesstimate where you were and what direction you were pointed. You also had to sort of guesstimate which direction your opponent was going. So, say your opponent fired first, his tank or her tank would appear first. You have sort of a general idea of where your tank is and what direction it's facing. So you have to take the risk of firing back. You can kind of, okay, maybe I need to turn to the left a little bit and make the shot, and it might get it. Well, if you were off, suddenly the tables were turned. Your opponent was now invisible. They knew where you were. They knew what direction you were pointed. So, and they had to make a guess. Okay, which direction is he going to run? And what direction exactly am I in? It's going back and watching that mode. I haven't been able to play it because I got rid of my Atari 2600 years ago. I sold it to somebody. watching that mode, I just realized how brilliant, how absolutely brilliant that incredibly simple game mode was. And it was the brilliance of the game. They had such little to do. They had such little in their hands to work with, but they did so much with it. But my sisters would always wreck me in the tank game. I was terrible at the tank game. In the air was a different story. Now, there were two versions of the air game. There was the biplanes, and there was the jets. The jets were kind of strange. It was offset. It was player versus player, but you had two jets, and they were together, and they were kind of linked. And when the jets would move together. It's hard to explain. I'll get a picture of it. They would move together, or it was one jet versus three jets, and they did that for the biplanes as well. But it was very different. When you go one-on-one in the airplanes against me, I was pretty sure I was wrecking everybody in the neighborhood, because this was like the first thing. This back in the day, we had arcades, and you had sort of the king of the arcade, the guy who in the neighborhood, or as we had, it was sort of a collection of neighborhoods. It was all the neighborhoods around where I grew up would go to the Circle K, and whatever game they would have, that would be the game that you had to get good at, because there were only two games. And sort of the king of the arcade back then would be the one who was best at that, and that sort of created a pretty hot competition. But as far as the home console, everybody in the neighborhood, now that I think it was really weird, people from the neighborhood, from the next neighborhood, never came over. We never had that cross play where they would come over and to our neighborhood and play. It was always just intra neighborhood. And it's kind of funny now that I think about that, how that worked out. The arcade was like an open tournament, and the Atari 2600s at home was kind of like a home tournament, the neighborhood tournament. That's kind of interesting now that I think about that. But I was absolutely dominant in the airplanes, in the biplanes, and that's kind of where I made my bones on that one. But looking back on it, I'll link to a couple videos in the description on like the actual gameplay. I don't have any gameplay footage because I got rid of my Atari a long time ago, and I kind of wish I hadn't. But we used to have a small house, and I was thinking, I don't have the space for all this, and I could kind of use the money. But now that I have a big house and a man cave, I kind of wish I had never gotten rid of all that stuff. But go check it out. You guys are gonna like this. I may actually. Oh God, I don't. The last thing I need is another dev project. But if I could just in a month make a version of, I may make it in Java. Yeah, that actually might be kind of fun. Make a version of the combat tanks in Java, where the tanks are invisible. That might be interesting. Okay, but it's great. I just gave myself more work to do. But anyway, go check it out. It was a really fun game, and I think I'm really going to enjoy this one, this series. But you guys go. If there's any games from that era, any games that you think were great, tell me, and I'll kind of give my opinion on it. I am definitely an old man of gaming. I've been playing video games since the late 70s, and it's just I've never really stopped like most grown-ups should do. But tell me what you think the greatest games of your life were, and I'll tell you how crappy they were. No, I'm kidding. But leave a comment in the comments. I guess you would leave a comment in the comments as opposed to the description. And I will definitely hit you back, and I will have more of this series if you guys like it. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. You guys go out, have a good day, and find something you like and you love, and share it with the world. Bye.